everyone, Julius Freeman here. Welcome to episode 2, Humble Beginnings, the video series exploring the history of my comics journey. If you saw my last video, I mentioned that I was going to show you the very first version of the Ghetto Dragon that I produced all the way back in 2010. I don't want to give away my age, but I was in my mid-20s at the time when I produced these pages. A little backstory. I grew up in a somewhat ghetto city, and walking through the alleyways were a little dangerous, but since it was still day out, it was still relatively safe to walk through. So anyway, as I was making my way home, I heard a commotion coming from a adjacent alley. I looked over to see 4 local gang members, cholos, for the Spanish-speaking folks out there, rushing another cholo, more than likely from a rival gang. And believe it or not, this one cholo who was being rushed by the 4, guys who were ready to jump him, swung and hit every single one of them. I just saw bodies drop like flies. Boom, boom, boom. It was amazing to watch, to be honest with you. Once they went down, the cholo ran off to safety, and it was like watching a martial arts film without the martial arts. And it was that moment that served as the culprit to this idea that eventually germinated to the Ghetto Dragon. After I had written down the idea, I slowly developed the character, the story, the entire mythos through the passing years, and once I got the story to where I was happy with it, these pages were the outcome. So I guess the end goal for these pages was to submit them to Image Comics. Admittedly, this was during the time when I was at my most ignorant when it came to the comic production process as well as the rules of comic script writing. I had convinced myself that once I submit this grand story to Image Comics, that A, they would accept it, and B, they would pay me to produce the book. I know, I was young and stupid, but hey, I learned eventually. And so, without further ado, here is the outcome of that ignorance. So what we have here is the cover for the 13-page submission. It was drawn by a good friend of mine named Jose, who was generous enough to draw it for free. Check this out. Check this sucker out right here. Look at all this detail on the side here. If you look closely, I'm going to zoom in a bit here. Look at this freaking detail. This is all him. I didn't ask him to do this at all. He just did it himself because he wanted to. And believe me, guys, I did my best to convince him to pursue comics because I believe he had a future in it. I even begged him for years to produce a comic book with me. And I only managed to convince him to produce a Ghetto Dragon 5-page short story that I will show you in a future video. But that was it. That was as far as he went. He made it very clear to me one day that comics will never be his thing. It's just something he was never into. He doesn't want to be into it now. So I gotta respect his wishes, and I stopped hounding him. Still, I believe he drew a beautiful piece of art with this cover, and it captured the tone I wanted for this book. So if you want to see more of his work, check him out on Instagram. His link is in the description below. Show him some love. He deserves it. Now, let me zoom out here again. If you see here this big old spot right here that I'm circling, it's this is where the title was originally placed, but I've lost that title font in my old hard drive that died years ago, and all I have left is his original image, which is fine by me because this image is top notch, and it would have devastated me if I had lost this cover. So yeah, so let's move on. Let's go to the next page here. Here we go. The first page of 2010 Ghetto Dragon. So this is the first of the 13 pages drawn by an artist named LJ. I met LJ in the comics web forum where I had posted an ad for paid work, and he responded to my email and I showed a few samples. I liked him enough, so we met up. I pitched him the story along with my plans to submit to Image Comics. He jumped on board because, like me, he wanted to become a professional comic artist like I wanted to become a professional comic book writer. So we signed contracts, we started to work, and one of the many reasons why I hired him in the first place was because he liked the story, which is always important for me. He was local, which was easy for me to go to his house and, check the progress. He knew how to use Photoshop, which I had no knowledge of how to use at the time. And his rates were low, really low. Now, remember, I was highly ignorant at this stage in my aspiring career as a writer and, in some ways, an editor. I didn't quite have the confidence nor the know-how to discriminate between amateur art and good art. At that point, I was desperate to just produce pages and pay out as little as possible, and discovered very quickly what the meaning of "you get what you pay for" really meant. This isn't a knock on LJ's skills, because he, like me, was starting out and I wasn't perceptive enough to properly decide what style I wanted for this series. Not just this book, but for this series. Because overall, LJ was a good dude and a decent artist at that time. He was approachable, quick to suggest things, and willing to put in the work. I'm sure if he kept on working on his craft, he would have been 100 times better now than he was back then. Unfortunately, the reason why he bowed out of the project was due to the fact that he got his girlfriend pregnant and had to get a real job that paid him better than I was paying him. I wish we could have grown together as a team, because I would have loved to have seen the evolution of his art style. So let's keep on exploring these pages so we could get right to it. So here's the establishing shot of the water tower that's in Santa Ana, my hometown. I thought LJ hit it out of the park with this page, but I can't say the same for my writing. My writing was atrocious here. Look at this huge narration box. Let me zoom in here for a minute so you can show you guys closer. Let's look at this huge lettering box. I mean, this is just amateur hour 101. I didn't letter the book. A talented artist in her own right, Heather Breckel, lettered these pages, and like myself and LJ, she also was starting out. She's gone on to work for Image and IDW, and I mean no disrespect to Heather. And Heather, if you're listening, hi, and I hope you're doing well. But let's be real here for a moment. This lettering, like my atrocious writing, didn't age well. Just absolutely terrible writing. I would have broken it up to more boxes, cleaned up the grammar, and finished the sentences a bit. But again, I was an amateur at the time, blind to my own overwriting, and I still tend to overwrite to this day. Whenever I write any of my scripts today, I always have to check myself before I wreck myself with overwriting the passage. Not everyone can write like Alan Moore, you dig? So overall, this page was pretty dope, and I did like how LJ added the rain here, and it was pretty good. But again, this was our first try, and it was okay in hindsight. So here's just the second page, and I mean, woof! Look at this lettering. These bubbles were also amateur hour. Again, nothing against the letterer, Heather. She did her best at the time with the tools she had available to her, and I can admit that my writing was terrible here too. We were all amateurs starting out, and we were just, I was still figuring things out as we went along. And if you look at this bubble here, you'll notice that it doesn't match the cop's facial expression, as it looks like he's confused instead of being angry, because he says here, quite frankly, whoever did this is going to wish they hadn't once I get my hands on them. But it doesn't match what LJ drew here. This was something I had to learn when I studied lettering over the years. The dialogue must match the character's facial expression to give it more oomph to the drama, and I failed here big time. And then if we scroll down here, I reveal what they're looking at, which is supposed to be a federal building. And again, amateur hour on my part, since I failed to show the reader what he's looking at. It's supposed to be a federal building, but to the reader, it's just a building. I don't show the reader that this is an important building, a structure that cannot be touched. So there's no heft to the reveal of the image, and the reader's left with nothing to care for. So there's that page. And let's move on to the third page, and here's our hero running in the alleyway in the rain with a plastic garbage bag over him to keep himself dry. Once again, I failed to show the reader how he got caught. How did he get caught? How did the other officers, or how did the police officers know that he put up that all CNI piece? In short, who saw him put up that art piece? So once again, the reader is left with nothing to care about, no stakes, nothing. Even though the last panel has our hero being chased by a dog, also, where did that dog come from? He jumped into over a fence here, but did he land? Where did he land? And you don't know where he lands here, and then all of a sudden he's being chased by a dog. So even though this panel was cool, I like how this panel was drawn by LJ. Overall, this page didn't really come together nicely as I had hoped. So here's page 4. In this page, Matt leaps over again. What is he leaping over? It's an overhead shot. The dog almost bites his hand, but LJ didn't draw anything here to showcase what he's jumping over until this panel here, where he lands in the bushes. I would have gotten rid of this and maybe extend this one out, and then he peeks out through the bushes, and here are 3 guys conspiring to do a crime of some kind. I really wasn't going to explore what it was. It's just something to put in. I really like how these 2 panels came out. I like movement in comics. See, if you notice, these 2 guys, they're still the same, but this guy here moves. A master of doing this is Alan Moore. And so here I'm emulating him in some respect with these 2 panels. This guy, wants to check out what's going on. He's going to investigate, which leads to Matt going, great, I'm great. He didn't want to be caught by this guy, so he braces himself, kicks the guy in the head, says sorry, he runs out, and he jumps over here. This panel right here, though, was pretty cool. I like this panel. I like how this panel came out. And so our hero jumps over. Again, I would have got rid of this panel. This panel is worthless. It doesn't need to be here. So when he jumps over the fence, boom, a cop, catches him. And once again, another amateur hour on my part, rookie mistake. How in the hell did this cop know that Matt would end up in that alleyway and be ready for him with the light and everything? Again, trash writing 101. Matt is ready for the cop, and he throws him a pepper ball, after he tells him to put his hands up. And this is a reference to a movie that I used to love when I was a kid called 3 Ninjas. If you've seen this movie, you'll understand the reference. So this panel right here was also a bad panel because it was supposed to strike the cop's eyes. So this was a mistake on LJ, and of course our hero jumps over the fence while the cop keeps calling for backup. And right here he runs across, and again, another mistake on my part. Where is this place? What is this place? Is it an abandoned building? Is it a bank? Is it a supermarket? What is it? Again, a mistake on my part. So he runs around here, goes around the dumpster, pulls the dumpsters apart. There's supposed to be 2 of them here. And there's a duffel bag. He changes out of the clothes, and he rests his eyes, puts his head down, and again, the cop finds him. How does the reader know this is a cop? Seriously, how does the reader know? He doesn't. He or she doesn't. The only clue I give is what Matt says here. No, sir, I haven't. Again, bad writing on my part. Just absolutely bad writing. So, Matt gets safe. The cop leaves. He stays there, and he sleeps. And again, what is this? Is this daytime? Is this still nighttime? What's happening here? You don't know. There's no establishing shot here to indicate the passage of time. And this close-up here, again, worthless. Why did I have the artist draw this? There's no reason for me to have this panel here. And right here, finally, I give a clue as to what this place is. But the reader still doesn't know what it is. And so he gets on the bus, and then he gets in the bus. And this panel right here was cool. This was symbolic of what the character was going through within his soul. He's in darkness. He's seeped in darkness. And I've always liked this panel. It captured the mood perfectly. This was this is all, the credit goes to LJ because he did this. I didn't write this in the script. He did this himself. and he just tapped into something deeper that I didn't see myself. So props to LJ for that one. All right, moving on. And so again, another, where is he? Where did he into? The only clue you have is this Terra Vista sign here, but where is the sign at? Is it in front? Is it within the building? You know, this is again another amateur hour on my part. He goes in the elevator, gets into the apartment, takes a shower to, clean off the stink, and he goes to bed. At this point, I think it's safe to say that I lost the reader. Whichever editor that worked the image at the time who received this in the mail saw this and like, this is trash. I'm not gonna freaking. They probably threw it away at this point. I'm guessing that that's what happened. And so again, where is this place at? The only clue I give the reader again is it's a police station because the cop right here. Who is this guy? Nobody. Nobody at all. See? Amateur hour. And I'm not afraid to admit that because I'm old enough now. I've grown a lot since then, so I could look at these pages back and just really trash myself for the horrendous writing that I did here. But yeah, moving on. So here we are introduced to the FBI agent and to the chief of police, and they're investigating what Matt did. The lettering here is a little better, slightly better. But again, I could have edited this down so that way it could be less bubbles per the page. But this panel here was pretty cool. Gave enough, LJ gave enough space for me to add the bubbles here and to, have the chief of police inform the reader. I guess this was the page where the reader would find out exactly what Matt did and how he got away with it. And this was another mistake on my part because I did telling instead of showing. In the comic book medium, it's best to show the reader as opposed to telling the reader, and this right here is a perfect example of telling instead of showing. And if you go to the last page, same thing. Look at this. Horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Let me zoom in here a bit so you can see. So yeah, lettering is not the best. The paneling is okay. This panel was cool. And this panel was also cool too. I like this panel because it kind of gives the reader a little clue as to maybe this guy's crooked or maybe this guy is corrupt. But we don't know that yet. That was the intention when I wrote this script for this page. But yeah, other than that, this is it. This was it. The 13 pages of a submission that I thought and believed that Image Comics would purchase and pick up and sell and sing my praises because I was full of arrogance. I was full of piss and vinegar, and I thought I was God's gift to comic book writing. And I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm not afraid to admit that at all because, it is what it is, guys. This is what happens when you produce something that you think is good. So overall, I had absolutely zero editing skills, and my regret was that I didn't hire an editor when I produced these pages. Should I have hired an editor? Yes, 100% I should have, because I had no idea what I was doing. If you're thinking about producing your first comic book, I highly recommend you hire an editor, because an editor outside your bubble will explain to you why you should rewrite a scene or why you should rewrite a piece of dialogue. During the time I was producing these pages, LJ didn't provide me any thumbnails at all. And it wasn't his fault because, again, we both had no idea what we were doing. I was completely ignorant about the editing process. I wrote the script. At the most, I only wrote 2 drafts of the script, and I sent it over to LJ, and he produced it based on the script I gave him. And he changed a few things here and there, but only after he contacted me to make sure that the changes were okay. And I didn't really learn the editing process until I started working with Kim Jacinto, in which I will talk about in next week's video. The story that you read here, that you saw here today in today's video, is going to be the exact same story, but under a different artist and a little bit more skilled artist, because Kim Jacinto was on a whole different level when I started working with him. And you're gonna see for yourselves the difference between an amateur artist and a professional skilled artist. But yeah, so again, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, interact. Let's do this. Let's move forward. And next week's video will be the same thing. I'm going to go page by page and break down the page and, do the same thing. Hopefully it'll be a shorter video because now you have a bit more of a backstory of the Ghetto Dragon. You recognize the character more, and so hopefully as the videos keep coming, you will be more in tuned to what I've been trying to produce for the past 10 years. So good night, good luck, stay safe, peace.
Welcome to the pre-launch of The Ghetto Dragon, Book 1, No Good Deed, a 60-plus page story about a young man named Matt Guerra, who saves an underage girl from being kidnapped by a heartless, gruesome gang named Los Valientes, who will stop at nothing to protect their street cred. Follow Matt as he pays the consequences of his good deed with his fists, causing Los Valientes to turn their sights on his family. Does our hero back down, or does he stand his ground? Join us in this martial arts adventure that involves action, drama, a little romance, and tragedy. Follow Julius Freeman on Twitter and Facebook for the latest updates. Also, check out his YouTube channel and subscribe where you can join him in exploring the rich history behind the creation of the Ghetto Dragon. Sign up to the pre-launch today where you will have first dibs of receiving your book. Help make it happen for the Ghetto Dragon, Book 1, No Good Deed. You won't regret it.